Welcome, everybody, to Pro Mindset Podcast. This is your host, Craig Domann. Today, we have a gentleman, Christian Ray Flores. Christian has lots of accolades. He's that guy that when you go to the buffet line, he's in everything. He's an author, a speaker, an entrepreneur, a podcaster. He's a coach. We talked offline before we got on, there's less things he hasn't done than things he does. So we're going to have a great podcast today. Christian, welcome to Pro Mindset.
Craig, thanks for having me, man. Appreciate it.
Okay, so we can't get to know you without knowing your story, your origin story, like how you got to where you're at. So share with our audience, childhood all the way today.
Well, the fast version of it, very, very, very condensed, is that I am half Russian, half Chilean, which is strange in the first place. It's an unusual combination. And I was born in Moscow, and my parents took me to Chile. We were going to stay there. And then there was a military coup. My dad was in a concentration camp. We were refugees. So, 5 years old, refugee, interesting start, right? Interesting childhood, which sends us basically traveling to Germany, back to Russia, to Africa. I land in Africa, my fourth country, third continent by age 7. And it sort of continues to be pretty unusual and dramatic from there as well. So I end up basically experiencing a lot of challenges, a lot of poverty, military coup in Chile, civil war in Africa, the fall of the Soviet Union in Russia. We went back when I was a teenager, and tanks in the streets of Moscow, things like that. And then sort of things changed dramatically. I got an education, I got a degree in economics, and I was musical my whole life. And it was just this one window in Russia of free enterprise, very small, and it closed actually soon after, about a decade. And I was like, you know what? I'm going to try music. I'm not really feeling the whole banking, trading, finance side of things. And I became one of the top artists in Russia. And not only Russia, but those 15 countries that were the former Soviet Union, filled sports arenas, entertained millions of people, sold millions of albums, even helped President Boris Yeltsin get reelected. He was running against the communists, which was the last time the communists were actually winning. And so that's sort of the backstory that is very sort of multicolored and eclectic. And now, basically, based on that, I do a few things. I have a digital media personal brand development company called Third Drive Media. I coach people. Obviously, from all these places, I gathered quite a bit of insight into human nature, and I do high-performance coaching. And I also, developed a soft heart for the poor. So we have an after-school academy in Africa that we sort of started with a few friends of mine. And it's a small project, but it's really transformational because it helps kids actually get out of poverty.
That is a mouthful. So help me understand, the average American doesn't travel the world, doesn't speak a second language, lives within, a few minutes of where they grew up. And there's a lot of people that move across country and travel the world, but a lot don't. What is the perspective that you have that the average American that done all those things doesn't have? And how do you connect with them when they don't have the perspective that you have?
Well, I think that's the beautiful thing, is that you can learn lessons and recognize patterns and then be able to help somebody that didn't have that same upbringing to still benefit from the wisdom, right? And benefit from the sort of the strategies. And I can tell you a few things. One, actually, I have a book. If you go to Amazon and look for my name, Christian Ray Flores, you'll find a book that I released just a few months ago called A Little Book of Big Reasons to Love America, which basically talks about that. Talks about, you guys, if you're local, you live in one of the most extraordinary countries on the planet. And sometimes because that's all you actually don't take advantage and don't appreciate enough just how amazing this place is. So I wrote this book from the standpoint of an immigrant and sort of pointing out things that people shouldn't be taking for granted, B, appreciating more, be grateful more, but even more importantly, take advantage of, right? And I would say that's something I recommend just taking a look at. It's a really fun book, has all kinds of multimedia dimensions to it because I'm a media guy. Now, if you ask me specifically, okay, if somebody grew up and stayed in the same place, what are some of the things that we can learn from the standpoint of somebody who grew up all over the place? I would say number one is the average American. You don't have to be rich, but you're sort of, most of us here, I'm an American citizen, I've been here for 20 years now. We're very comfortable. And because we're comfortable, we really start trying to avoid discomfort quite a bit. You know, we don't do well with suffering. We don't do well with the challenges of building a different future. And in there is a weakness, right? That we can totally overcome. We just train ourselves to understand, look, if you are not happy with the status quo right now, you should embrace a very strategic and actually fairly almost like integrated level of pain and suffering in your life if you want to build a different future. How do you do that? So you can train somebody in that.
Okay, so one of the things that's interesting is that wherever you live, you take it for granted. So
Hmm.
if you live a mile from the beach on either coast of the United States or anywhere in the world, a lot of people don't go to the ocean
Oh, absolutely. Yeah.
because they always can. It's
Yeah. It's always there. It's always
it's
there.
there, but it's the people that vacation that go to the ocean and go to the beach.
That's
So
right.
we would go like interview all the people. Let's just take California and let's take, Southern California, one of the beaches there. And we would interview people. We would find that most of the people there are not from Southern California.
Mhm.
And so what happens is we just, when we have things right next to us, we don't use them. Like we desire things that we can't have. It's not at our fingertips. Okay. And then the other thing that you mentioned was I fell into that trap. The all-American dream is to be comfortable.
Mhm.
Everybody thinks it's to be rich. It's to be comfortable, to have a little prestige.
Yeah. A little status, some respect, you
Yeah.
know, yeah. A little
And what
safety.
follows that, as soon as you hit that mountain,
Huh?
laziness sets in. Different things like that, complacency sets in. And so then you become your lifestyle and who you are becomes less than what you were. So I love people that do hard things. I love people that take on new challenges, that strive to learn new skills, because that's how you grow. So here's something that probably maybe you have thought of before, but for your first like 7 years of life, you were growing at warp speed
I was, yeah. Yeah, it was insane.
compared to the average 7-year-old.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. I mean, the average 7-year-old, hangs out with his friends in the cul-de-sac in America. You go to school, you go back home, things get done for you. You don't see a lot of danger. You don't see a lot of uncertainty. That's just the reality. And yeah, that was in the moment, it was just extremely hard. As a matter of fact, I just spent 2 weeks in Chile with my dad, and he was like, when you arrived in Africa, I would take you to, visit friends, and you didn't want to get out of the car because you felt so awkward because you didn't speak the language. Um, so I was sort of paralyzed for about a year. And then sort of underneath the surface, I think I was sort of mobilizing myself. So it was forced mobilization, internal mobilization as a child. But I ended up learning 4 languages by age 9. And I mean, there's a slew of things that were extremely beneficial and helpful for my success later. And they all sort of began becoming sort of more practical and visible after I like shot up in the charts in Russia. It was TV, radio, everywhere, right? But it was under the surface. The stuff that was under the surface was the reason for that, right? And I think most people should pay more attention into their inner game than the outer game. And if you pay attention to the inner game, your outer game will improve dramatically.
Okay, Christian, what are the top 3 or 4 fundamental principles that you learned between, 0 and 9 or 10 that you didn't learn on purpose? You just didn't have a choice,
Right.
that started revealing themselves at later times in your life. And so what were the principles and what was the later success that was revealed because of what you learned when you were younger?
Okay, so let me list a few things. First is just the ability to learn. I call it deep learning. The ability to learn at an accelerate rate and then sort of keep learning. This is like a foundational thing for me. Even now, I'm 56 years old. It's just turned 56. It's learning how to learn. That's number one. Number one. And I would say for anybody, Never stopping, learn how to learn, integrate learning into not your general life, but your daily life. Every single day, learn something new, 1%, get a little bit better. Why? Because whatever you want to do in life, something new, you think you know the 5 things that are important for this thing that you want to do. Let's say start a new business, make a turn to your career, into a new career, or get a promotion, whatever it is that you want to do, or get healthy even. You think, okay, I think I know the 5 things. Inevitably, you need like 50 things. So that the necessity, the vitality of knowing how to learn is completely non-optional if you want a better life. So that's number one. The second one is success is completely 100% correlated with your ability to connect with other people. It's all about people. It's all about the friendships, the network, the trust, a bigger audiences, like a big audience, or even the small core of friends or your mentors. It's all about people. So the second thing I would say is I want to fit in so badly, and the world keeps changing on me, right? I mean, 3 continents, 4 countries. So I've sort of had this very primal ability to read people, to learn people, to connect with them. So it's language, body language, tone, everything. It was sort of hardwired eventually because I felt like I needed to do that. So now, obviously you can learn those things. You don't have to, have a traumatic childhood like I did, but you can say, hey, I want to prioritize my people skills. How do I connect? Right? My relationships. So that's number 2. I would say number 3 is learning how to live with obstacles and suffering and uncertainty, right? You and I mentioned before that if you live in a comfortable place, you will be much more fragile as a human being. And you don't have to wait for the sky to fall, right, to learn these things. No, you can actually integrate and create it's like a survivable level of discomfort every day. So doing hard things, just like you said, as a lifestyle. And that's how you get very, very comfortable with uncertainty, with risk, with a little bit of pain. And that's how you grow.
Let me say that people that don't do number 3, when they face uncertainty and stress and risk and curveballs, they have heart attacks.
Right.
Where
Yeah, they shrink and collapse. Yeah.
people that learn how to deal with uncertainty, so this is one of the biggest challenges I see for all of us, is when our circumstances don't align with our dreams. We have this dream, we have this goal, we have this mission, we're on this path, and we look up and it's not matching.
Mhm.
We think we're going one direction and we're really going a different direction. And when that happens, what I see most people do is they pivot. They don't continue on their path to their dream when their circumstances don't match up. They change their dream.
Yeah.
Except for the 1% of 1%ers.
Mhm.
They don't care. They're detached from their circumstances and they stay on mission. And then eventually it works. So I want to go back and I want to dig a little bit deeper in these 3 things because all 3 of these things are incredibly powerful. Let's go back to number 2. When you be more expansive on your understanding and perspective on your success depends on people and connection to people.
Well, everything from you are where you are, and there are people out there in your sort of extended network in your world who see around corners, who've been where you are, and they're much further along on all kinds of levels, right? On the business, finance, relationship, parenting, management, you name it. There are people out there who can save you decades of time. That's why coaches are a great investment, right? Coaches are a great investment because you can get there, you can get from Austin to, Key West riding a bike, or you can take a plane. What would you rather do? So that's one. The second one is you never get anywhere alone. You're always good at certain things and not good at others. So mobilizing talented, gifted people around you to sort of go in the same direction to help you do the things that you want to do is crucial. I mean, people are everything. They're everything. You can have a brilliant team member change your entire business. You can be the brilliant team member who changes somebody else's business. You need a best friend. You need somebody who can sort of validate you when times are tough. You need family, romantic relationships, your extended family, relationship with your parents. Like I just spent 2 weeks in Chile. I had no time to go spend 2 weeks in Chile, but I wanted to reconnect with my dad and my extended family. That's important. Those are my roots. It really helped me, as a matter of fact. If you want to be an extraordinary performer, high performer, you will have extraordinary pressures and complexities in your life. It just comes with the territory. So if you come from, like me, from 3 generations of broken homes, and you don't know how to do romance and marriage, you're going to eventually, it's going to catch up with you, which it did. I was like 26 years old when it did. So I had to go and reimagine my romantic relationship. How do I build a family? What do I even understand about that? Do you want to be a millionaire and your kids resent you and don't want to speak to you? Learn parenting if you don't want that. So it goes on and on and on, right? So I expanded it in a few different directions here.
Okay. You mentioned in the beginning that you are talented and experienced in identifying patterns. What are some of the patterns that people don't realize are important patterns that lead to the mountaintop versus the valley, depending on whether they do it or they don't? So what I'm looking for is like keys to success that people don't recognize as keys to success because they're patterns that daily habits, ways of thinking that when it, at some point in time, it backfires on you or it gets you to where you wanted to go.
Well, the first one that comes to mind is how do you deal with anxiety? Anxiety is a powerful thing. And the sneaky thing about anxiety is that you can actually just get used to it and think this is just normal. I had a conversation just recently with somebody who was interested in my coaching. And I said, do you feel this and this and this and this? She goes, every day. Is that like, I felt like it was my problem. I said, oh, it's most people. She's like, really? Oh, absolutely. The vast majority of people live with completely unacceptable, unhealthy levels of anxiety. It's endemic. So the skill that's why I think it's a hidden thing, right? Because you're normal, you think it's normal. And somebody healthy would look at emotionally healthy, would look at it and go, oh, that's horrifying. No wonder you're experiencing this and this and this and this. So the skill to get out of that is being able to change the way you feel, not just think, but feel emotionally, because you act out of emotion, not out of thinking. Every single day, yet if you start the day with anxiety on how to turn it around, because your day is valuable. You only have 8 hours of sleep, 24 hours. What is it? 16 hours. These are the chips that are dealt to you. How are you going to bet those chips? And most people, because they have this almost like this cloud of anxiety, will bet those chips in an inefficient, ineffective way. Rinse and repeat, rinse and repeat, rinse and repeat. But what if you could turn that around? And then the first hour that you spent, you know how to turn that around into being creative, excited, optimistic. The same exact time that's been allotted to you, the 16 hours. You'll make better bets every single day, right? That's transformative. That's absolutely transformative, in my opinion.
Okay. You mentioned earlier, most people play the outside game and you focus on the inside game. What are those? How do you define those in your
Well,
world?
the outside game is important, but the outside game are your skills, your marketable skills, what the marketplace sees, right? You are an engineer and a pro football player, you're a musician, etc. You're a lawyer, you're an agent. You close deals, you talk to people, you know how to draw contracts, you know how to build bridges. That's outside game stuff, including some of the other sort of lower level things. He's optimistic, he's effective, he collaborates with people, things that people see. The outside game will always be rewarded by the market because it brings immediate results, right? Or visible results. So what happens is if you're rewarded for just one dimension of you, the outside game, over and over again, what you're going to do, you're going to prioritize your outside game, which is fine, right? The problem with that is that your inside game your mindset, your emotional state, your soft skills, what they call soft skills, and they're like extraordinarily crucial skills, like relational dynamics, like creative thinking, all of those things, right? How do you rest? How do you recuperate? No, the marketplace doesn't see that. It doesn't reward that. How do you build your marriage? Do you know how to parent? Do you have daddy issues? Those are inner game things that the marketplace doesn't reward, doesn't see, and they're longer arches, right? So for me, let's say I show up in the marketplace as a musician, or there's all kinds of things that went into me showing up as a great artist. The market immediately rewards me, immediately, right? I go from small clubs to medium clubs to sports arenas, from sort of local things to TV in several different countries. I get endorsement deals with brands, et cetera, et cetera. What do? I do that, more of that. Well, a few years in, all of the cracks that are inner game cracks start really impeding my outer game now. So that's where you see a great artist or an athlete or a business person having drug problems, depression problems, marriage problems, all of those things. Now they can't do even the outer game stuff well. So if you focus on your inner game, you will absolutely win in the long run. Why? Because at a certain level of professionalism and performance, everybody's good. The fact that you're good is a baseline. It's not even, don't think you're special because you're good. Everybody's good at a certain level. What differentiates you is that inner game thing. Does that make sense?
Well, I see it in the NFL all the time.
I
I
can
tell guys
imagine.
all the time they need to play their inside game, not their outside game. And their inside game is who they are. Their outside game is what they do. And we're
Yeah.
human beings. We're not human doers. And the human beingness of the essence of who we are is our inside, and our doingness is our outside, and it's all connected. But what I see happening in the sports arena and in the business arena is that when it's very important, it's a big game, big moment, big opportunity, careers on the line, big contracts on the line, doesn't matter what it might be, that's when the inside game reveals itself. If there's a
Yeah.
crack in your soul, if there's a crack in who you are, if there's a crack in your belief and confidence, it shows up then.
Yeah,
It
it
doesn't
does.
show up when nobody cares. Like when
It's invisible most of the time, right?
it's invisible. And it shows up a lot of times in the form of your pocket voice, which is you talking to you. It's your inner critic. It's what you really think of who you are. So the inner game is narrated by your pocket voice. And your outside game is narrated by your bank account, by your prestige, the titles behind your name, the status you have. But it's so, like you mentioned that a lot of people like go to drugs and different things. It's because they don't have their inside game grooving. I mean, it's like they're struggling, but they can still go on stage and perform. They can still go on the field and perform until they can't.
I can't, yeah, it catches up with them.
Yeah.
It catches up with them. And so I think that's why, look, if you really want to be a high performer, this is what I focus on for that reason, is you got to get your inner game together. I'm not going to coach you, for example. You're an incredible professional and agent, and I would never dare to presume I can teach you how to do your job better. But I can teach you how to, the inner game can support the skills that you already have. You're world class already, right? So it's that kind of thing, right? And so I've loved working with athletes of different kinds. I'm not even interested in sports, but I can help them. I'm not going to help them how to, lift weights better, but I can help them how to deal with their inner game and how to perform consistently on a high level every single day.
For listeners and our viewers that are sitting there going, I want to work on my inside game. What's the first place they start? Is it their weak spot, or is there a fundamental place you would go?
It's a good question. I would say it's a great question. I would say work on something that can give you a quick win, like right away, quickly. Why? Because you probably are to a certain degree discouraged already. Once you see progress, your emotional state changes, right? Your self-esteem actually and your confidence changes only in relation to one thing: progress. one step forward. So tackle the things that can get you progress right away, and then tackle the things that are much more heavy lifting kind of things. That'll be my approach.
I mean, when you're coaching an athlete, you do the same thing. You don't, if they've got let's say it's a quarterback and he has a fundamental flaw in his throwing motion that he's done 4,000, 5,000 times, you're not going to change that quick, right? But if you can change maybe his posture, where his body's at in relation to where his target is, that's such an easy fix. And it's going to show up in his performance. So it's like you do need to get quick wins because candidly, you lose credibility if you're coaching somebody and you can't
Yeah.
help.
Yeah. So when somebody starts working with me, I said, look, some of the things I will put forward for you will give you results this week, the week you start. And then we'll work on some of the longer term heavy lifting things. Why? Because they just get more optimistic about life. That
Okay,
helps.
so when did you crack? And maybe you didn't, but we all crack. When did you crack as a musician, a performer, and what caused you to crack? And when did you identify that you needed to have an inside game? You needed to up your inside game, up level it. And what was the situation?
So for me, it was literally it was probably 3 years into my first career. I've had 5 different switches when it comes to career. And literally I had a number one hit. It was madness. It was everywhere, like radio, TV, every party. It was the thing, right? And by then I've been already famous for like 3 years, of course. And, fame does things to you. And really it doesn't do things. It reveals things in you that already exist. So for me, it was romance. I was super traumatized by my parents' divorce. I was 14 years old when they divorced. It really affected me. And it basically sort of told me this narrative, this story that marriage never works. Eventually it will crash. It eventually will break hearts, and not only yours, but your kids as well. So I sort of had this weird tension where just like any human being, I wanted love and belonging and to have someone. And but I also got completely terrified of intimacy. Anytime it would get serious, I would sabotage the relationship, would do something stupid and mean, actually, sometimes, and to draw the other person away. And that was when I cracked. So I was dating this girl, not for long, maybe less than a year, and she got pregnant. And that was sort of a glitch in the process. I had date somebody, break up, date somebody else, break up. Don't allow people to get close to you to protect your heart. So now you have a baby. I have my daughter, Deanna, but I can't stop because the pattern's already there. So I draw her away, my ex. I wasn't married to her or anything, and had no intention of marrying her, but I draw her away, and she cuts me off from my child, moves to another country. And that's what cracked me. It became very clear to me at the very peak of my career that I don't know how to live fully. And I was clinically depressed. And I met this guy who was a Canadian missionary. And, and I despise Christians. And I'm like, tell me about, you have this family. I want to learn about that. And he goes, well, I have this family and it's healthy. And you admire that because of the spiritual aspect of things, inner game, right? And I go, okay, I want to learn about that. And he taught me, and it changed my life. So I recently celebrated, well, not recently, a few months ago, celebrated 25 years of marriage. Never looked back. Happy, 25 years of happy marriage. My kids love me, respect me, don't resent me. So that blind spot got fixed. But it only got fixed through massive coaching and humility, right? And then my outer game improved because of it. So, and that's just one dimension. You can go on and on about all kinds of other things as well.
Okay, one thing that I coach my people on is reframing your past, because when you were a refugee, when you were moving all over the world, when you had zero stability, your parents didn't have normal careers where they're getting a paycheck and a 401k every 2 weeks type thing. So you were living from day to day. And you also had this history of girls with, relationships, break them up as soon as they started getting serious. So you never really saw it or experienced it before you did it. So what I find is that people, much like, runners train with the resistance parachute, the concept is real simple. We bring our baggage with us. So you brought your baggage into every relationship. You were looking for the signs of, hey, she wants a ring. She wants to settle down and get married. Oh, she's all in now. Then you got to start pumping the brakes and backpedaling. How did you break your pattern, your own pattern of not being all in when your history, you never saw it? You never lived it. How did you do that personally?
Well, to me, it was coaching because I had somebody else who had a different life journey, a different trajectory. And I studied why is this trajectory different than mine? And I basically was able to go, oh, so it's not really a set in stone situation. It's just my situation. It's just my life. I come from 3 generations of broken homes. So it's not every home that is broken. So, okay, let's study from the person who knows how to do what you don't know how to do. It's that simple. And I think the sort of the smart thing I did back then, unusually smart, is that I started doing that and seeking wisdom at the age of 26. Most 26-year-olds don't seek wisdom. It's just because we think we're invincible, right? We're so optimistic. We don't know what we don't know, and we're full of energy and we have all kinds of other advantages compared to somebody who's older and wiser. So we just run with that. And then we have to learn through our own mistakes, not somebody else's mistake.
Okay, one phrase you used that I 1000% agree with earlier in our conversation is that coaching is very beneficial for people that can't see around the corner because the coach can. One of the things that I saw in the athlete representation business is you could see the end of the career before it even started. And you knew it could go different directions based upon their decision making and their health and different things, how they responded to coaching and changes that happened in the NFL. But I already knew the end before it started.
Yeah. Yeah.
And
Absolutely.
these guys, some could see farther than others.
Mm-hmm.
I use the metaphor of horizon. I could see farther on the horizon than they could because different people can see different distances. So what are the 1 or 2 things that the average person can't see? This is a very general question now that you can help them with in your coaching.
Okay, so I'll give you one, I think that's super, super, super amazing. And it's related to something that I actually would love for people to take advantage of if they want to. I developed a scorecard. It's called the Exponential Scorecard. If you go to exponential.life/score, exponential spelled without the E, you'll find basically it takes like 5-6 minutes, 40 questions. And it'll give you a scorecard in your inbox. And it's a great tool to measure where you are if you really want to reality check, right? Why do I say that? The scorecard is based both on my sort of decades of experience working with people, but also in a lot of research and science that basically delineates these are the 7 different dimensions that are the highest weighted for your long-term success and happiness. Literally, this is straight up data backed, right? These are the things that have the most effect on you. Health, wealth, you live longer, you're happier, all of that. So most people just don't have that in almost like a radar. So that's why we use a tool called the radar, where we score 7 dimensions all the time with the people that I work with in the cohorts. I'm like, okay, let's list off the radar. And they go, okay, on this, I'm a 7, on this, I'm a 10, on this, I'm a 3. Man, I need some help with this. If you keep almost like a holistic picture in your mind and have accountability with it, you will see transformation that you didn't think it would be possible. Why? Because these are actually the dimensions that matter. The world, Instagram, Facebook, your friends will tell you all kinds of things matter. These are the things that matter when it comes to the human experience. This is universally true. So I think that's a big thing, right? Understanding what matters, prioritizing it, being accountable, and working on the things that matter most. Everything else will line up behind that. So like if you are scoring, a 3 and 4s across 4 or 5 dimensions, I don't even have to know you. to tell you you're either in trouble or about to get in a lot of trouble. If you're scoring mostly 8s and 9s across 6 dimensions out of 7, and you have like a 3, I'm like, oh, don't worry about it. It's going to be fine, because the 6 will support the 7th, you know? So it's a really wonderful way to see your life, that really almost like you can separate yourself from the drama and the stuff that doesn't matter. It's just nothing. It's noise. This is the signal. Pay attention to the signal, focus on the signal, and you'll see results, guaranteed.
Let's dive into one. You pick one of the 7 dimensions and introduce the concept and why people are successful or why they fail in that particular dimension.
Okay, let me introduce something that doesn't come, it's on nobody's radar, but I put it in there for very good reason, and it's the dimension of fun. I call it fun because I have 7 Fs, you know, family, friends, force is for work, finance, fitness, fun. Fun goes last, sort of, because it's almost like the vitamin that makes life go, right? And it is essential because people that learn how to be happier, they are much more successful. This is just also scientifically proven. You don't become successful and then be happy. You become happy and then become successful, because your whole worldview changes, right? So if you have a practice, if you just measure that, understand that, and value that, is that you need to laugh. You need to take it less seriously. You need to delight in your friends, in good food. You need to be able to rest. You need to be able to smile. You need to be able to feel the sun on your face. And people that are sort of hyper focused on results think, oh, that's just almost like selfish. No. It's actually essential. If you want to be a high performer, you have to integrate fun, delight, joy in your life every single day, every single week, in different proportions, in different dosages, right? And it's so counterintuitive, especially in a place like America, where the most workaholic nation on the planet Earth, only maybe rivaled by Japan. Like we just don't understand fun. We can't live with fun. Like we can't even stand the idea of having a full day of delight where we don't like do something that is useful, quote unquote. And to me, that's the one thing that's completely being invisible to most Americans.
Well, I can tell you in NFL locker rooms, the guys that play the longest have the most fun. The guys that are the class clowns play the longest because they're not taking everything so seriously. They make the worst part of their job fun.
Yeah, that's good. That's a great insight.
Right? The training, the things that are really hard,
Yeah,
they find a way to make it fun.
yeah, gamify it. Absolutely.
Pranks. Peyton Manning was one of the he's in the Prankster Hall of Fame. Everybody thinks he's only in Canton, Ohio in the Football Hall of Fame. Peyton Manning is in the Prankster Hall of Fame. And that is a testament to what you just said.
And the other thing is the dimension of this fun, delight sort of thing, dimension is that athletes, I think, do understand that part, but professionals don't. Is that no athletes ever competes, good athletes, I should say, and maybe you can actually disprove that as a professional in that area. Let's say an Olympic athlete. You don't go to the Olympics and plan to compete and medal in a depleted state. That would be that's completely unquestionable. Like,
exactly.
No one, who would think of that?
Right.
If you look at the professional world, most people are completely and chronically in a depleted state, right? How do you expect to be the top in your industry if you're constantly in a depleted state? And that's where the fun dimension comes in, is knowing how to rest.
No, I see that all the time. See that even in myself. I see that. There's times when I don't recharge. Fun is recharging too. Fun is everything that doesn't have this. I'm making up a definition for you right now. Fun encompasses everything that doesn't get you to where you want to go. But because you do it, it supports where you want to go.
That's a great definition.
Right? So if you get more sleep, it's not really helping you,
Yeah. On the surface, it's not.
Yeah, but it is, because it's giving you more energy, more patience, more ability to deal with adversity, and let's say fun is going out and having fun, going and having a great conversation and some drinks with some friends.
Exactly.
You're not working, but you're recharging so that you can work harder the next time.
Yeah. And you're not depleted on the other end of it, right? You're
So
full. You're full of something else.
here'd be a study I'd love to know the answer to. You got a controlled group of people that work every waking minute. In the same industry, you got a controlled group over here that can't work more than 10 hours a day. And during that other 6 hours that they've got, they get to choose things to do, but every single one of them is a fun function.
Mm-hmm.
Which one over a period of time? Now I know who's going to be ahead. The 16-hour people are going to be ahead.
In the short term, yes, they will be
In the
ahead.
short term, they're going to take the lead. But if we're talking about a marathon, they're not going to win.
No, they're not going to win.
If we're talking about a sprint, they're going to win.
Yes, that's
But
exactly it.
it's counterintuitive for people to think that if I work less, I actually perform better.
Well, there are studies, I can't cite an exact study, but I know for a fact that you only have 3 hours a day, maybe 4, maybe a little bit less, of highest level of creativity and effectiveness. That's all you have. Everything else is checking email, it's mechanical. It's not distinctive, right? So we work around those concepts as well with people that I work with, because you go, okay, so if I only have 3 hours a day and I have a list of that will fill 15 hours, I have to figure out how to unload, delegate, automate, recalibrate, so much so that I will work to the maximum those 3 hours. I will make transformative work. Maybe I'll add another 1 or 2 hours of maintenance work, and then I'm done. And I think the people that will win the marathon are the people that figure that part out.
I agree. I've seen it in my own life. I've experienced it, where you're burning the candle at both ends and you're working every waking minute and you're exhausted. And when you do that, you don't recognize opportunities.
That's a great insight.
And
you become blind to the things that will actually change your life. You just don't even see it. Absolutely.
You're not as creative in your solutions. You're not as patient in your responses. I mean, all those things. Because if you see somebody that's got road rage and they're uptight and they're quick to anger, they're usually depleted.
Yeah. And also that starts spilling over into other dimensions, right? When we talked about relationships and people. Well, who wants to work with you if you're hard to work with? Less people, okay? Just automatically, you don't inspire. How do you lead in a depleted state? If you have a team in the locker room and you're depleted as the coach, they're pessimistic that they're losing a game and you're depleted. You don't even have it in you to put that energy, that faith in them, right? So if you're a team leader in any industry, that's the exact same thing. You're going to start bleeding talent.
Okay, we've talked a lot about coaching and wisdom and like awareness and consciousness and all these types of things. I want to dive into you as a performer, as a musician who has a number one hit, who's performing in front of thousands of people, and your schedule is probably busier than you want it to be. How did you, and I'm guessing you weren't as wise then as you are today.
You're absolutely right.
So what is it? If you could go, you can't.
Right.
If you could go back.
Yeah.
And be that star performer again, what would you do differently because of what you know now that you didn't know then?
I'll list you a number of things that I think would be amazing. It would be just transformative. First, I would get much more granularly involved in the business side of things, not just the creative side of things. And because I was sort of high on creativity and the stuff and the life, I became a little bit more bohemian than I should have, and become much more granular with finances, management, the partnerships we're shaping, the contracts we're signing. I just wasn't involved enough. And I was totally qualified. I have a master's degree in economics. I just chose not to do it because it was boring. And it's not boring in the long run. Okay. So that's one. The second, I would definitely party less and be much more focused on the professional, on the high performance, rather than just sort of the benefits of fame and fortune, right? The second one. The third one, I would on self-esteem and peace inside, confidence, because I was very successful, but I was also insecure all at the same time. The whole imposter syndrome thing is very real with most people, actually, right? Especially if you're now hitting heights where you go, I don't even belong here. How do I even get there? People will any minute understand that I'm an imposter, that I shouldn't even be here in the first place.
And you were a refugee. You
There's all kinds of things like that.
you're
Yeah, I
like
don't belong.
national. You really don't have an identity. You've
Yeah,
created your own identity, your own nationality.
that's right. Exactly.
Which part, which leg is in which country?
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah. I don't belong anywhere. I don't fit in. That's
exactly.
exactly it. So how that was not helpful is that I was so insecure that I didn't create more partnerships with other artists. I was more competing, more asserting myself compared to them. And instead of that, I look back and I go, man, and I'm still friends with them and everything. But at the time, I could have written songs with them. I would collaborate on albums with them. I would share the stage with them. I would lift them up. I would do all these things that would elevate my career as well as theirs. But it was mid 20s. I'm insecure. I just hit that success. So I was sort of friends with them, but I didn't go deeply enough in relationships. And that's why I look back and I go, it's people. I could have connected so much deeper with people and invested in people, and they would lift me up and I would lift them up. But I was sort of, insecure and had I just kept my distance. So yeah, it's a long list of things.
Okay, so you just described the typical professional athlete.
Really.
Absolutely. He doesn't care about business, doesn't know
Hmm.
where his money's going, is totally competent to do it,
Yeah.
but wants to leave it to other people to do. You want to live the lifestyle, the party life. Um, it grabs you. And if you're not ready for it, it eats
Yeah.
you up and spits you out. Okay. Very few athletes at the highest level can keep the main thing the main thing.
That's
And the
right.
ones
Yeah.
that do, they sometimes play 15, 20 years. But there's
Hmm.
a lot of a lot of players that have the potential. They have the giftedness, the talent to play 15 years, but they play 6 or 7 because they're incapable of holding space for that career of 15 years. They've got
Yeah.
the talent. They've got the
It
God-given
sounds
talent.
of it's
Yeah, and then they're not collaborators. They're very selfish. They're very insecure. That's all about protecting their position, protecting
Mhm.
their status, protecting their money, protecting their contract. It's not about, hey, it's not about us. It's about me.
It's about me. Yeah.
And so here's what's interesting about this whole concept. When you represent professional athletes, you do the same thing.
Is that right?
Oh yeah. So you see, it's monkey see, monkey do. And so you start getting more selfish and less collaborative. You become a competitor. You see every other person in the industry as the enemy. There's not, and it still goes on. I mean, in the representation business, there's not a lot of collaboration, even within a company. Even within a
Wow. Yeah.
group.
So people get really territorial and not collaborative. Yeah.
Absolutely. So what you just described is almost like a archetype
Yeah.
of like being famous or being in the limelight.
Hmm.
And athletes and musicians and politicians and different people are in that way. And so I would bet that politicians are the same way.
Honestly, everybody, just to maybe a lesser visible degree, I think artists, politicians, athletes are higher contrast, right? Because of the intensity of the experience. But that's what got me into coaching, is because of that experience and the turnaround I saw when I started paying attention to my inner game. I started sort of helping people here and there, and people sort of flocked to me and said, "Can you help me too? You seem to have an insight into that." Because what you just saw, it's basically the same thing. Like you can transfer the same exact set of sort of blind spots and classic errors, like archetypal errors, to big business, to tech entrepreneurship. Tech entrepreneurship, it's all about the hype, okay? Silicon Valley. Oh my gosh, and entrepreneurship in general. It's the more status you have, the more game you have, the more accolades you have, you fall into the same exact traps, basically.
Okay. Christian, what's one thing you'd like to share that I haven't touched on, that when we connected here a little less than an hour ago, you're like, hey, I'm excited about talking about X. What is X?
I would say get guidance. That's probably the two things, if you allow me. One is get guidance. Guidance will save you years of life, all kinds of mistakes, and will take you higher, and you'll go further. Connected to guidance is aim higher. I think it's very common for us. It's very primal, I would say, because we want to belong. We don't want to be rejected by our tribes. To aim to the middle, because we play it safe, right? Well, the problem with that's counterintuitive, is that the middle is crowded because everybody does the same thing. If you aim higher than the average person, it's actually easier to get there. It's just less crowded. So overcoming learning the skills, the inner game, to aim higher consistently over an extended period of time, I think it's a huge deal. It will help you tremendously.
I agree with that. Well, I want to thank you for being on Pro Mindset today. I want to encourage all the listeners to go to Exponential Scorecard. It's on your website,
Exponential.life, spelled without the E. Yeah,
exponential.life, spelled without the E. Go get your scorecard. And where can people find you besides there?
Go to christianrayflores.com. It's probably the best place because it's a newsletter that drops twice a week. It's full of value, basically. And I put a lot of time and energy into it. So if you want a dose of insights, strategies into success and significance every week, sign up. I think you're going to really love it.
I want to thank you very much for being on Pro Mindset today. That was an awesome conversation.
I appreciate it. It's a privilege to be here, Craig. Thanks.
Hey, it's Craig Domann, the host of Pro Mindset Podcast. I want to thank you for listening or watching today's show. And you can catch us every week on the normal social media platforms like YouTube, Facebook, Instagram, and all the listening podcast platforms. I hope you enjoyed today's show. And more importantly, I hope you gained a Pro Mindset insight. Please be sure to rate and review Pro Mindset Podcast. And I look forward to catching up with you on our next show.